Imagine for a moment a simple tax placed on goods as they cross a country's border. We call this a tariff. It makes imported products more expensive for consumers inside that country. The goal of a tariff is usually to protect local industries or to put pressure on another country for political or economic reasons. For decades, the world has been moving towards lower tariffs to encourage global trade. This trend helped countries like India build strong export industries. Everything from clothes to chemicals was sold to customers in the United States. This system became the foundation of global economic growth, creating a complex web of supply chains linking factories in Mumbai to shoppers in Minnesota. Washington put these really big tariffs in place for two main reasons. The first and most political reason is that Washington feels the economic ties between India and Russia are growing stronger. Even with constant pressure from Western countries after the war in Ukraine, India has greatly increased its purchases of crude oil from Russia. New Delhi has said that these purchases are necessary for its energy security and are purely for economic reasons, because Russian oil is available at a very low price. But from the American point of view, this trade is giving Moscow important financial support, which lessens the effect of Western sanctions. The US doesn't see India's stance as just a neutral economic decision, but rather as something that indirectly helps Russia's geopolitical goals. The US administration has given a second reason. Many unsolved trade problems have been going on for years. American officials have often complained about India's protectionist policies, which include high tariffs on some US goods, like agricultural products, and medical devices. They also bring up concerns about intellectual property rights, where American tech and pharmaceutical companies feel their patents aren't properly protected in India. Besides that, data localization requirements, which force companies to store Indian users' data within India's borders, have been a big problem for US technology giants. These tariffs are, in a way, a strong move to break this long-standing deadlock. This move is also very connected to American domestic politics. Taking a tough stance on trade often appeals to certain groups of voters, especially in industrial areas that feel they've lost jobs due to overseas competition. By presenting tariffs as a response to both geopolitical defiance and unfair trade practices, the administration can show its strength. The 50% tariff doesn't affect India's economy in the same way everywhere. It's like a special attack that targets certain export industries. These are the ones that employ the most people and are very successful. The textile and clothing industry is super important for India's manufacturing, and it's one of the most at-risk industries. Millions of people work in this industry, many of whom are women in the countryside. For a long time, the US has been the main buyer for cotton shirts, bed sheets, and other clothes. A 50% price increase makes these items too expensive compared to countries that don't have these extra fees. Bangladesh, Vietnam. American stores looking for cheap t-shirts will find Indian options very pricey. This will lead to canceled orders and factories closing down. Gems and jewelry are also taking a big hit, especially diamond cutting and polishing. These are expensive items, but the profit margins are very small. India processes most of the world's diamonds. The US is the biggest buyer of diamond jewelry. The new fee makes things much more expensive, which could push business away from India. The seafood industry, especially shrimp farming, has been directly affected. India is the top seller of frozen shrimp to the US competitors like Ecuador, and Indonesia can quickly take over market share. Other industries that are affected include shoes, handmade carpets, and some chemicals and engineered goods. For a small carpet weaver in Uttar Pradesh or a shoemaker in Tamil Nadu, losing access to their biggest customer is a huge threat to their livelihoods and jobs. Section 4. The fine print. Navigating exemptions and loopholes. 50% tariffs. Alarming. But it doesn't apply to every single product from India. The US has created exemptions and technical rules. It's a complex landscape for exporters. Products critical to the US supply chain are exempt. Exemptions where India is almost the exclusive supplier. For example, some pharmaceutical ingredients might be excluded. Active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs. US healthcare relies heavily on Indian API makers. Tariffs could harm American patients and manufacturers more than they pressure India. Another layer, the harmonized system. HS codes classify traded products. Tariffs target specific HS codes, not entire industries. So, in one sector, some goods get hit, others are spared. They prevent other countries from rerouting goods through India to avoid tariffs. To be Indian, a share of the value must be made in India. But there's a risky loophole. A manufacturer might try to prove that most of the value comes from components sourced in a third country. and only the final assembly happens in India. U.S. Customs is alert. Transshipment schemes are risky. Section 5. The human cost, from factory floors to global markets. The economic effects of these tariffs go way beyond just company balance sheets. They directly lead to a human cost, felt most by India's micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs. These small businesses are the backbone of Indian manufacturing, especially in export-focused industries like textiles, handicrafts, and leather goods. Unlike big companies, MSMEs work with small profit margins and have limited access to money. They often rely on a few buyers, with American importers often being their most important clients. A sudden 50% tariff isn't just a challenge they can easily handle. For many, it's a death sentence for their export operations. The immediate result for these MSMEs is a flood of canceled orders. An American retailer who placed a large order for scarves or shoes will now find that product unsellable at the new higher price. They will quickly cancel future shipments and might even refuse to pay for goods already in transit, citing unforeseen costs. Indian MSMEs are then left with a warehouse full of inventory they can't sell, and a serious cash flow problem. This inability to make money means they can't pay their suppliers for raw materials, can't make their bank loan payments, or, most importantly, can't pay their workers' wages. This directly leads to massive job losses. The sectors targeted by the tariffs, textiles, seafood, footwear, carpets, use a lot of workers. They provide jobs to millions of people. Many of these are less skilled workers from rural and semi-urban areas who have few other job options. When a textile factory in Tirupur or a seafood plant in Visakhapatnam loses its U.S. orders, it has no choice but to cut back on operations. This means laying off weavers, tailors, packers, and sorters. The ripple effects are huge, impacting families and local economies. The larger economic impact is a major setback for India's Make in India initiative. These tariffs weaken the idea of India as a stable, reliable manufacturing hub and create uncertainty that discourages future investment. Section 6. A world of rivals. The scramble for India's lost ground. In the world of international trade, one country's loss is almost always another country's gain. U.S. tariffs on Indian goods don't get rid of American demand, they just redirect it. Textiles, shrimp, footwear. Competitor nations in Southeast and South Asia are ready to step into the void left by India. Bangladesh, Dhaka, Chittagong. It supplies huge amounts of affordable clothing to Western markets. Vietnam, efficient manufacturing and trade ties make it an immediate alternative. These countries can quickly ramp up production to meet new U.S. demand. Ecuador has rapidly increased shrimp production and is a big U.S. market competitor. With heavy tariffs on Indian shrimp, Ecuadorian suppliers become the default choice. In gems and jewelry, India's craftsmanship is unique, but trade could be diverted to other tariff-free polishing centers. Once an American retailer sets up a supply chain with a new partner, it's very hard to win that business back. The primary winners will be in the factories of India's regional economic rivals. Section 7. India's next step: retaliation, negotiation, adaptation. Faced with aggressive U.S. tariffs, New Delhi is considering a multi-pronged response, balancing defiance and practicality. India could impose punitive tariffs on American goods. This might include almonds from California, apples from Washington, Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Indian officials have started high-level talks with their U.S. counterparts to roll back or partially reduce the tariffs. India will argue that the tariffs are hurting a key Indo-Pacific partner. Export councils are helping industries find new markets, diversifying away from the U.S. to the European Union, the Middle East, Southeast Asia. These markets won't fully replace U.S. demand, but they can lessen the damage, also boosting domestic consumption of goods that were previously exported. For industries like textiles and seafood, this shift requires new marketing and distribution strategies. Key signs to watch: the outcome of the initial India-US talks and the impact on quarterly export numbers.